Right, you know, and I want to make it very clear that this is not a grifter video. I'm not going to be one of those chuds, I'm not going to be one of the parrots. God. That's not the kind of video this is. I'm not going to come on here and scream how this casting is some HBO DI woke replacement theory conspiracy. That's not my job. That's not what I'm doing. If you want to go see that, then go watch, I don't know, the Critical Drinkers video on this. I bet he's done a video on it. I don't watch, I don't know. So, I'm tired of the cultural stuff, man. I'm so tired of it. It's exhausting. And that was my first reaction when I saw this. I was like, oh no, here we go again. Now, it's been a tradition in Hollywood in the past few years because they can never come up with anything new. They will continuously just remake and reboot stuff. And whenever they do that, you always tend to see some representation in these remakes. And you'll see often maybe a race swap or a gender swap of a character who was originally white in most cases, or then you'll see that the outrage in this culture of these two quite extremes. If you got one side calling it a disgrace and you're betraying the original, and there's some DEI woke conspiracy going on, then you got the other side who say if you don't like this and you're just racist, you're this, you're that, everything under the sun. And then you got people in the middle who are just trying to be objective but don't want to be associated with either group, whether they like or dislike the film. For example, it's very annoying to be someone that isn't a big fan of the sequel trilogy, but not for the reasons of the grifters, but because there's just very frustrating films in a lot of places, despite the good stuff. My personal view on this stuff is that most of the time I couldn't care less about a race swap, and I don't even think it should be a discussion. I think if you're doing a reboot or a remake, you are totally okay to change whatever character appearance you want. Why not do something different with it? My least favourite remakes, right, are the ones where it's just the same thing as the original again, and you just think, what's the point? Like the 2019 Lion King film. It was just worse in every way, because they didn't even try and do anything different with it. I personally think the current outrage about Sam Wilson, Captain America, is ridiculous. I think Anthony Mackie has done a fantastic job of the role. Steve Rogers passed on the shield to his friend Sam Wilson when he retired, who reluctantly eventually stepped up to take on the mantle. Nothing wrong with that. And I don't even understand why people are upset and they just think, oh, they've turned Captain America black. No, they haven't done that. His friend stepped up to take on the mantle. Oh, it should have been Bucky. Mate, he's the Winter Soldier, God. But that's the whole thing for another day. So most of the time, I have no issue with this sort of thing. And it's annoying that I do have an issue with this one, because I'm going to look like one of them, but I'm not that. But this week, it was revealed that in the new HBO Harry Potter series, I have no idea why they're making that, by the way, Papa is Sisu would be playing the role of Severus Snape. He's someone who's definitely a decorated actor and has started in Shakespeare and seems on paper someone that, yeah, would do fine, but there's some blatant issues with this casting that I find. Now, my immediate issue is, even if you are to ignore the race element and to specify that the race of Severus Snape in the books was never clarified, although it clearly was, that the visual description that we are given of Severus Snape as composed to the appearance of the actor is kind of quite contrasting. So in the original, he's described as being frail, pale, this middle-aged man who's not very attractive, kind of down on his luck, and this man is way too good looking to be playing Severus Snape. There's no way he's going to be able to conveniently convince an audience that this is a man who's miserable and has had his life ruined and nothing good has happened to him and has gone through everything that the character went through. And as good as an actor as this man is, I don't think it works on that level. So that would be my issue with the casting. But then you look into some of the underlying things, and there are many characters in Harry Potter that you could race swap and it doesn't really change anything. If Quirrell, for example, is race swapped, and this man could have played Quirrell, or someone like Lockhart, or even like a more background character like someone like Professor Sprout or Professor Flitwick. And it doesn't really matter, but Snape is one of the worst characters you could have race swapped, right there with the Weasleys. Don't do that, God. Be ginger, haven't they? It looks bad, and I know in the Harry Potter universe you could argue that racism isn't an idea that was written in, and any sort of inequalities mainly just come from whether you're pure blood or you're muggle born in it, or kind of class, because the Weasleys get discrimination, even despite being a pure blood family, because they're not as well off as, I don't know, like the Malfoys, for example. But as an audience who lives in the real world, you're going to read into it when you've got James Potter, who I'd assume would be played by a white actor. We don't know that yet, but I'm guessing. And his mates who are bullying Snape for no real reason. It looks bad, especially because of the time period in which the original Marauders' time in Hogwarts was set, which I believe was the 70s. Like, you can't say that there was not some inherent bias there. It also looks even worse with Harry when he's in the first book. Of course, he has this suspicion of Snape throughout the book, and for no real reason either, and he's wrong in the end. Now, to give Harry some slack, I 100% believe that the Dursleys are bigots. I mean, come on. Vernon Dursley is just like the epitome of the angry man shouting at the screen. So you've got these kind of things of, it doesn't look like it was very well thought out. It doesn't look like... They really took 5 seconds to think, how could this be perceived? How does this change the narrative? And you really cannot be making James Potter racist, because if you do that, you're kind of ruining me even further, because he's already kind of a controversial figure in the Harry Potter community. He's sort of... He's good in the end, but he's naive when he much changes the story. If this show is to last 5 seasons until that scene where you find out that James Potter did bully Snape, which, fair enough, if they cancel it before that, which very much could happen, I don't have a lot of faith in this project, then maybe you're fine with the Snape thing, but then you've still got the Harry thing in the first one, so actually, no, what am I talking about? Now, I also don't like that HBO have done this, because surely they are aware of the backlash. Now, when HBO announced this project, they said that they wanted to make it more book accurate, that the original Harry Potter films, you know, they were quite good as adaptations compared to most things, compared to something like the Percy Jackson or the Aragon film, for example. They were way better, but there was still a lot of stuff that they maybe left out that people wanted to see, or stuff that they changed that people didn't like. The Goblet of Fire and Half-Blood Prince seem to be the 2 films that people were the most disappointed in. The early ones people tend to like a bit more, so it's annoying that we're doing that again. But when you're claiming you're going to be more book accurate, and you cast a man that just doesn't emulate Severus Snape in any way, you're never going to replace Alan Rickman. But Adam Driver was right there as just the best. Like, you didn't even need to put him in a costume. He's already Severus Snape, you know what I mean? That it was right there. And if you couldn't get Adam Driver, I'm sure there's many other actors that could have done it. And I'm not saying that Papa Susu couldn't have been in this series. As I've already said, there's other characters that you could have race swapped in the show, which I don't think people would have had much of an issue with. I'm sure there would have still been issue, but there would have been less of that, you can't prove what race they were or stuff, because there's no doubt with it. It's like the Hermione stage musical thing where clear what race Hermione was in the original. Fans care a lot about this. I mean, if a lot of book fans, their perfect adaptation would be like 7 hours long with every single down to eye colour, which was a big thing, to the point that they had to give Daniel Radcliffe contact lenses and he was allergic to them in the original. So the attention to detail is a very important thing people have, and I understand why they, from the book accuracy standpoint, why they're so upset about this, but HBO must have known about this backlash coming, and they've sent this guy out to the wolves, and I hope he turns down the role, and this is why, because he's going to receive a said backlash, and he probably already has. There's going to be death threats, because we see that every time from extreme idiots. There's going to be attacks, there's going to be this kind of thing. And there's going to be this massive war over nothing, really. It's really upsetting that he's going to have to go for that. And I wouldn't do it. If I was in his shoes, I'd walk away from the project right now. And I think this project is a bit of a sinking ship. I don't get why they're doing it. I think you could have done a Harry Potter spin-off, something like the Marauders series would have been a much better thing. So yeah, that is my perspective on why I think this is a bad idea. It's very frustrating to do this, because I'm usually like really annoyed whenever people are doing these sort of things. Like, oh, what have they done to Ariel? Oh no, like. But then you've got to like. I have genuine reasons why I think this is a bad idea. So yeah, I will see you lots soon. Goodbye.